Oh, hey everyone, welcome to another episode of CNC Board Game Factory. My name is Chris, CNC Chris.
And I am CNC Chris.
Dang it.
Cam. I'm Cam. Cam, sorry.
I thought I was going to be unique.
Nope.
All
Not
right,
today, bud.
not today. So this is episode, I believe we were going to call it 3. A lot of shows end up just stop saying what show number it is after a while because it gets tedious. So welcome to episode
We're like
17.
America's Got Talent or American Idol or something. Where it's like we're in the pitches, and then we're going to move into a whole new, would be like, elimination process, part 1, you know?
Ah, okay.
It's just that we don't know how many times we're going to pitch games, but several more, I think.
A few
right?
more, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I've got some ideas that are cooking around. Some that are more fully formed, some of that are just, a twinkle in my eye, so to speak. So
Yeah, every single one of mine is a twinkle. I think we know this. But
No, I'm actually pretty excited about one that I want to put a little bit more time into and make a good presentation for it tomorrow, or not tomorrow, next time that we do this. But today
yeah.
I've got one that I'm pretty excited about because it's a little more personal. So I'm excited about that. But we should emphasize. So anyway, first of all, I'm Chris from the Meeple Overboard podcast, and you.
And I'm Campbell from the Board Boys podcast and CNC Board Game Factory.
Yes.
So
So those are our individual shows.
Those are my credits.
And then, so I'm pretty excited about doing also a little bit of follow-up. So what we're going to do, today's episode is going to be a little bit of follow-up on previous ideas, and then we will do a segment called Things That Make You Go,
Mm,
and then we'll jump into the new pitches for the week.
yeah. And I'm really thinking that this time we can really make it in an hour. Do you think we can do that?
Yeah, sure, why not?
I mean, it's just arbitrarily think it's like a good amount of time to do our podcast in. You know what I'm saying?
Well, we're succeeding at every other measure imaginable to man, so...
Yeah. Would you say exceeding or exceeding success? In other words, we're doing so good. We're not succeeding. We're exceeding.
We're exceeding.
Expectations. We're exceeding all the criteria we'd laid down, except for I think we have the tendency to get a little long-winded. You know what I mean? So today we have no truck for the verbose, and we're gonna get this thing done.
All right. So should we move into follow up on previous ideas? Cam, have you had any further thoughts on your treasure exploring game or on Fire Hose Fairies or what were some of the worker placement multi-phase game that you talked about last week?
If I'm being really honest, I've had kind of a busy week because I'm going to be moving to a new house here in a couple weeks, surprisingly. Something popped up that I think will be good for when my wife, who is in Peru waiting on our immigrant visa for her to, be here full time. Long story, good story. Not today. It's brevity, but need to get a bigger living situation, and I found a spot that I think meets all my needs. So haven't been thinking about board games. Also, I just play way too many video games, and I work, and I really got to put another just an hour of thought into this podcast before we do it every week. That's gonna go on my scheduler.
Gotcha. I spend a lot of time actually thinking about game design stuff. I've been working on different things, and yesterday a few times this last week, Wendy and I played a few sample hands of the fruit smoothie game that we talked about, fruit salad fruit smoothie. So I made that mock-up of cards, and we sat down on a table, we played across from each other, and it was interesting because I was thinking for like a 4-player game, you might want 5 fruits. And so my first thought was in a 2-player game, you have 3 different types of fruits. And then to summarize, to recap really quick, fruit smoothies, you have a few different fruits in the middle, and those score. And so you shuffle up a deck of cards, you deal 8, 10, 12 out to each player, and they play either a matching fruit face down onto it's like if you have grapes, cherries, and strawberries, you play grapes onto grapes. That increases the value of grapes at the end of the hand. But if you play cherries on top of the grape stack, you're going to then reduce the value of grapes for that hand. and it's completely blind, all upside down. And then once everybody passes, once they feel like they played enough cards, you reveal how many cards you have. I have 3 grapes and 2 cherries. You then score. You flip over the stacks on top of grapes, cherries, and strawberries. You'll score either positive or negative points for each copy of a card of that fruit that you have. So I liked the idea. It seemed very simple, and when did I did a demo? We did a few little hands of it. Learned that 3 fruits is way too few, because logically things should scale up or down, right, depending on the number of
Right,
players.
right.
But having 3 fruits means that I tank one. I throw a bunch of bad fruit on one. Wendy throws some bad fruit on another, and then only one is gonna like maybe score that round or whatever. It led to uninteresting levels of play. We bumped it up to 4, still uninteresting. We hit it up to 5, which was my original idea, but for like a 4-player setting, and it turned out to be great. That hit the docket, and it was, when I say great, I should say it was functioning. There's a difference between a great game and a functioning game, and in today's climate, more publishers are going to be moving away from publishing lots of functioning games and focusing on just better games. So we were having this discussion of this game is functionable, but it's not great. And so we played for the first time a game on Board Game Arena called Six Nimmt. Have you played that game?
Yeah, I actually have played Six Nimmt a couple times.
It's awesome on Board Game Arena because it does all of the, like, you don't put cards in the wrong stack, and 3 turns later someone's like, oh, that 86 should have gone in front of the 64, not the 59, or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like it's a game that works really well because of its, like, electronic. Like, it seems like there'd be a lot of math to do if,
Yeah.
not math, because it's not a math game, but order of operations and, like, when things, like, pop and what happens when it does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we played that, and we just both had such a fun time, and we thought there has to be some tickets to make simple card games like this that are just streamlined but fun. And so we were talking about it, and here's my thought: Fruit Smoothie is a functionable game, and I think that it has an audience, and I think people would like it, but I don't think it would be picked up by a publisher. But what we decided was, if the version that we have, where every fruit you just play face down, and positives or negatives, and whatever cards you have left in hand, you earn that many positive or that many negative points, play to 50 points, and whoever wins, right? But what you could do is you could then have so the cards in the middle that represent these are the fruits that are in the mix today: strawberries, bananas, kiwi, whatever. Some of the cards would have different distributions of numbers, so most of them have 1 1 1 1, 2 2, and a 3. That's going to affect the values, but some of them will have straight 2s across the board. Some of them will have 4 0s and 4 3s. But then, I think the idea that made us really excited about the game was every fruit would not only just have like the numbered cards, but if you put the lime card in the middle, and you're playing with limes today, you can play on the A side, which is just straight up normal. But every fruit would have a B side too. You flip over the central card in the middle where you're playing the cards towards, and every fruit would have a different ability or a different effect. So, for example, I jotted some of these down on a walk that we're having last night. So for like cherries come in pairs, like the little stereotypical cherry drawing is 2 of them on a stem. And so every card that you play onto cherry, the effect of it is doubled. Either double positive or double negative. Oranges offend nobody, right? Everybody likes oranges at minimum, so it's an absolute value deal. Instead of, if you tank the value of oranges, it's like -4 at the end of the round. You take the absolute value of it, it's still worth 4 points.
Ah.
So the goal of it then, if you're not playing oranges, would be to try and keep orange close to 0. Another card, just for the stack of strawberries, you would play cards to that face up instead of face down. And so
I think didn't we talk in the original pitch about having abilities for each fruit?
And originally I think we were going to tie them to the cards in your hand. So if I'm holding strawberry cards,
Yeah.
when I play it, it has some sort of effect to it or
No,
whatever.
I like this idea better where it's based on where the scoring is based on that. That's neat.
Yeah, yeah. So that was, I think, the breakthrough where it kept it simple. Because having just played Six Nimmt, I was like, none of the cards are special when they're in your hand. They're only
Right.
special on the table once they get scored because you don't want to score points. And so I think that this keeps the idea of simplicity in your hand. In your hand, all you're looking at is this card is a 3 strawberry or a 2 grape or a 1 cherry. But then in the middle of the table is where the difference and the interesting stuff comes in.
Very neat.
So yeah,
Very, very neat.
so that's been my breakthrough on ideas that
I love it.
we've discussed previously. I'll put it together in
Fruit
tabletop sim.
smoothie! Yeah, and then we can play with the Ice Pick Boys.
Yeah,
And then they can come on the podcast and talk about how they felt about it when we get into the selection of what game we're going to make
that'd be cool.
portion.
So yeah,
Very,
so that
very,
was my
very cool.
follow-up.
I love it. So I feel like from the concepts we've talked about so far, this fruit smoothie game, I think it's had the most work done to it, and it's all by you, of anything we've talked about. But also, I kind of think it's a game that maybe is going to be done before we even get out of pitches. So, I feel like our podcast is going to be pretty short if we design fruit smoothie. Although maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. Maybe there's a lot of work that needs to be done on it. And doing a game like that is a great way to sell something quick and then make enough money to make Rocky Road miniature golf.
Takes money to make money. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too is like if we feel like it, there's no reason that we can't have 2 concurrent projects going on if we want to make Adventure Island the big game, but at the same time we're also developing Fruit Smoothie. Like, why not?
True. That is true. Yeah, we didn't really set any boundaries for this podcast.
There's no rules.
That's a thing that makes me go,
So that's a smooth transition. Do you think we should move on to that so we can leave plenty of time for our pitches today?
I think so.
All right.
I think we're doing great, by the way.
I'm doing excellent. I am also very humble, which is great.
You are so humble. I'm also really humble. I'm probably one of the most humble guys.
There's so the thing that's been making me go is an argument comes up from time to time that is both uninteresting and impossible to settle. And so let's bring it up and discuss it on the show. It is
Okay.
What is the definition of a Euro game? How do you classify games as Euro games or Ameritrash games or whatever it may be? Right?
Yeah. I feel like I would have had a definitive answer to this question before everything became a hybrid 4 years ago.
Explain yourself, sir.
Well, so I feel like I could have very well told you, and it's not for. I mean, this has been a long time coming. I feel like when I first started playing board games, certain concepts tended to be more Eurocentric, and certain concepts tended to be more like what you would call like American gaming, Ameritrash, centric.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was I would say there would be like a four square of board game design, which would be like your American type, like generally conflict games, or like very, very long-winded like economic strategy games.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I've never played an 18xx game, but I would feel like those are on the American side, like business simulator games that aren't like economic Euros, which have a very different feel, I think. And then there's your Euros, which to me, in the camp of when I first started playing board games, would have been like Puerto Rico, Settlers of Catan, those like Caylus, like those are the games I was playing. And to me, those games were defined by their generally they had unique mechanisms for the time, which could have been anywhere across the board, and they were generally uh, you were never out of the game until the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then the fourth thing would have been like party games, which would be like, anything you can teach in just a couple minutes that's, often more fun than it is competitive. And then
Everyone
the
knows
fourth,
Taboo is more of an Ameritrash game than a Euro game.
no, I'd just say it's a
I'm
party
joking.
game.
I'm
Yeah, there we
joking.
go.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the fourth would be like mass market games, whether it was stuff that stood the test of time, like Monopoly, Clue, Risk, or stuff coming out like for kids at Target with like, dexterity games, word games, anything with a board and like a roll and move mechanism.
Right.
I think that as the hobby of board games has become close to mainstream, the design tends to be more of a Venn diagram and less of a Foursquare. You know what I mean?
I think that's true.
Um,
Yeah.
so what are we going to call a Euro? Um, it's like what's pornography? I can't describe. I can't define it, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah. I mean, that's from the Supreme Court right there. That's Justice Stewart. Is that what you say? Justice Stewart's like, that was his like part of his final ruling. Yeah, I can't define it. So what I was thinking, so the thing that's been making me go, is, and also to add to your four squares, let's add a fifth one of abstract games.
Oh yeah, forgot that.
Yeah, so
So it's a 5 square, which would be tricky to play, but yeah.
Yeah, when you're playing Foursquare and you're the dongle off on the side, you're like, woo!
I'm playing 2, guys. Bounce it over here.
So what I was thinking is, at a previous job, we would have annual assessments and stuff of our performance and our career, which was always super boring and terrible and very nerve wracking because if you didn't get enough 4 out of 5s, then it was bad. But I couldn't remember with this particular company was 5 better or was 1 better, and everything's super inconsistent. And Chris, you got a 2, and you're like, oh crap, really? Well, yeah, that's like second best rating. Oh. So they would visualize it with what's called a radar chart. And so I put up this picture of radar charts up on our stream right now, which I realize you can't see. So let me actually...
Who cares? No, I mean, I care. I'm joking. I do care.
So let me share this window with you then. And then you'll be able to actually see it, see what I'm talking about as well.
Oh, a radar chart. Nice.
Yeah, radar charts. This is what I was like, star graph. I kept looking up like how to make a star graph in Excel, and it showed it was not pulling up the right thing. The term is radar chart. And I thought, rather than trying to stick things into categories like Eurogame, Ameritrash game, especially when people are stuck on this binary idea that those are the only 2 types of games which exist, which you have disproven with your 5-square theory.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you were the one who made it a 5-square. I was a 4-square. But yeah, I would say that the 5th square can exist within 3 of the other squares, though, because I feel like that. Well, I feel like, I don't know. I would say that the abstract is most closely aligned to the 4-square I mentioned, which is mass market games, because it's something that like you could find at a like a person who's not a gamer's house, be like, oh yeah, my aunt got me Santorini. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like,
yeah, it's
like,
like
because I feel like
chess.
abstract games are the games that are least, even if it's like a hobby abstract game, it would be the least recognizable. It would fly under the radar the most for the non-gamer. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, hands down, hands down. So the reason I think a radar chart would be interesting if we kind of analyze games in this sense is you can have any number of variables along the outside with which to measure a game against, and you can have interesting things like you mentioned, for example, things that are simulationist in games tend to be more kind of American style games, right?
Yeah.
You're simulating a war, or you're simulating a conflict, or you're simulating a business practice. But and so the less abstracted out it is, the more of a simulation it is. But that also that applies to either like a war game, but it can also apply to an economic simulation game, which then tends a little bit more towards those 18xx type games or those train game type things. There's some sort of simulation going on. But then there's also Euro games that are very simulationist or not, right? I think I would rather see a star chart for a game say, hey, it is a 8 out of 10 on simulation, but it is also 2 out of 10 on abstraction, like simplified mechanisms or whatever that kind of represent a greater whole, but not really. But then it's also 6 out of 10 on luck, and it is 3 out of 10 on thematic. Like you could create whatever number of variables to kind of go around the outside, and I think that the shapes that you create, if you were to measure games kind of standard across these same measurements, I think that you would see perhaps a better analysis and a better breakdown of what kind of game it is somewhat categorically.
Oh yeah,
So I'm going to go ahead
definitely.
and stop sharing my screen. But yeah, so that was the thing that's been making me go, is there a better way to analyze the category of games? And it's something that I'd like to put a little more thought into, and maybe make a I almost said Star Chart again, a radio radar. What is it? What did I just call it?
A radar graph, and like that's the kind of graphs also they use in like Japanese RPGs to show you the growth of your character.
Yes. Yep. And so I think there's an innate gameriness to it that people can enjoy.
Yeah.
All right, my friends. So that's my thoughts. Things that make me go, this week.
The things that make you go, That was far enough away from the actual song to be considered parody, I think.
Things that make you go,
That's very far away. Although I don't know if we're allowed to say things that make you go, Like stuff that makes you go, what?
All right, so on to pitch time. 24 minutes into the episode. So
Oh, nasty. We're nailing it. That gives us 15 each and a 5-minute wrap-up.
Yeah,
and
dude.
then we're in under an hour. I'm recording 2 podcasts today, actually. So today is a Board Boys recording day.
Oh, snap.
Don't know what we're going to play, but we're going to do something
Cool.
on stuff that was unimportant for this podcast after I talked about not saying, like, keeping it brief.
That's your character, Cam.
Yeah, so are you going first today or am I?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Hang on. So who went first? I think you went first in episode 0. I went first in episode 1. You went first in episode 2, I think, right?
Okay.
Yeah, did you go before me last time? I think you did.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. But I think if we did, let's just go every other, and I'll be odd episodes and you be even episodes. So
And if not, we're starting now.
Yeah, and I'll go first today.
Perfect.
Okay.
Please.
So me and some of the homies are going to be playing Twilight Imperium 4th edition on Tabletop Simulator tomorrow, and I'm very excited. And every time I play this game, despite the fact that it has so many aspects of games, like despite that it has so many aspects I hate, there's just something so desirable about playing Twilight Imperium. And I think I've diluted the drip down to what I really love about the game. I love picking a race of galactic, conquestial beings. I love the theme of like an epic space opera. I love the trade and the complex trading you'll do in the game where it's like, yeah, like there's simple trading, but there's also like you'll make arrangements with one another that are very abstract. And I love like just the 4X-ness of it all, as well as like the diplomacy and the voting. But something I was thinking about is so many. I feel like board games try to do this like space 4X thing, and like dilute it to like a smaller thing. And I feel like those games always end up not being great, except for Eclipse. But Eclipse is really basically just the same thing in a different way, and it doesn't take as long, but it's also not as juicy, and it has way less teeth. You know what I mean? Like they didn't dilute all the aspects of the game and make them smaller. They just focused on a couple aspects of the game and took out pretty much everything else. So I was thinking today, like, what is my favorite aspect of, this epic game, and what I think could I improve upon if I were to make a game of my own. And I think the thing that is oftentimes the least, like, I want it to be the most exciting part, but sometimes becomes the least exciting part of games like this, is like the Senate session, which is like you're going to the big meeting and you're voting on things that are going to take place for the rest of the game. I don't know if you've ever played Twilight Imperium before.
Mm-hmm. I have.
So when you go, sometimes when you're playing the game, you'll have just a really nice spread of different agendas between people playing it, and you'll have a nice spread of like who has the most influence, but the stuff that comes up is incredibly boring.
Okay.
Or you'll
Like
have
the
like,
politics cards that come up
yeah,
for
yeah,
a
yeah,
vote. Okay.
right. Or you'll have an issue where like just one person's wielding all the diplomatic power, and then they just get to make the decisions, and there's a bunch of different I think variations on that theme, but sometimes it can be really interesting, but usually it's a little underwhelming, right?
Hmm. Okay.
So I was thinking, what about a game where the main portion of the game is the voting? Lately, I've been playing King's Dilemma, which is very thematic, legacy, decision-making game with voting and stuff. But I also think like, I also want to make sure that it's not like a legacy thing. It'd be something that probably is intended. I don't know if it'd be intended to be played in an hour, but almost certainly under 2 hours for
Okay.
this game. But here's the pitch: everybody picks their galactic race, and maybe there's 12 of them to pick from, and maybe the max is 8, but it works great at 4 even. But probably you want 6. The same way with Twilight Imperium, where you want to have 6 people. It could play 8 if you have the expansion. I think maybe I don't know if you can play 8 players in 3rd edition. You definitely can't in 4th yet. I mean, unless you want to jury rig some rules.
I mean, there's people who have played like 12-player games of third edition.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, you do whatever you want. You can make your own rules, right? But what you do is you pick a race, and of course they have a couple abilities. They have their ways that they're different from everybody else. But what you're doing most of the game is, agendas are going to come up, and I haven't quite decided if you know what agendas are coming up, or if it's going to be, a secret, like before they come up. Part of me wants to have less up to chance in the game, so that choices are actually meaningful. But the way you score points in the game is you have an open agenda that everybody knows. And it's something that could play into the rules of every single round. Like, it's a small way of scoring points that you can win if you fail your open agenda every time. You'll be doing better if you succeed your open agenda every time, but usually it'll happen where you're succeeding at like probably half the time. It won't be like incredibly hard to do, but like everybody knows that the Zarglaxians like love it when X, when a vote passes by more than 2 votes or something like that. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Or, like just something simple, but like enough to like game it so that people near the end of the game, when they're like looking at what the score is, might vote again. Like it's kind of a mind thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody will also have a secret agenda, which is a racial agenda, that's going to be worth like, say, 5 points at the end of the game. And each race has 2 of them, and you probably have a cheat sheet that you know what those agendas are, and you get to pick one of them like a third of the way into the game, and it's face down. Okay, so that's what's up, and so you're going to be voting on these like agendas most of the game, and they're going to like alter what happens for the rest of the game. There's going to be permanent things. There's going to be instant things. But it's going to they're generally not going to like negatively or positively affect any one person's position within the empire very seriously, but they will affect probably like end game scoring and the way things work. Because in between every vote, you get to do the rest of your 4X stuff. You get to fight, you get to expand, you get to build things, you get to research technology, but it's very, very, very minimal.
Okay.
So every race probably starts with like a military in front of them, which would just be represented by little, circular. Each one of these is a military, right? And then everybody starts with an amount of money, which is just a coin. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
During the downtime, I don't know if you take turns or if you just like do it behind a screen and then like push it out. But basically, you can convert money into a couple different technologies. It'd be a very small tree, and probably everybody would have the same tree. But it would just like allow you to have maybe a little more voting strength, a little more military strength, this and that. But it would just help you gear towards what you're trying to do. You could turn money into more military, and you could turn money into objective cards, right? Which you can carry a little hand, which during the voting you can play and be like, this happened, so I get to score here. Or maybe it's something you hold on to the end, or maybe, whatever. But basically, maybe you have objective cards in your hand and you can buy them. And they'll probably get more expensive according to how many you have in front of you and in your hand.
Okay.
And then after everybody does that, there'd be like an action phase where you could either like explore or you could attack somebody. Just very simple little thing where like, oh, okay, I'm going to use mine to explore and I'm going to play this planet. Oh, I'm going to use mine to attack and I'm going to send 6 of my ships over to this guy, and 6 of my ships kill 6 of his ships. And basically I haven't decided what, but like the weaker the military would not only be like, there would probably be more agendas that favor stronger militaries, or maybe if you can like wipe out the last military, you actually get to take over a planet and then they get some military back. It would be set up so that like people couldn't all like gang up on one person just because they're doing well, but it would be a very one-for-one thing with very little like. There's no action cards in this game. Like, no, you don't. It's all well known what people can do.
Is there no cards?
Yeah, I hate nope cards. That's one of the worst things in a game. Is like, oh, I guess I just played the nope card. Oops. Action cards are a thing that I thought was really cool when I was a new gamer, but the more and more I get like noodly nerdy cam, the less I want to be like, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would have never done that. So that's my idea. Very point-based voting, although I haven't decided how you do that major mechanic yet. And then very minimal everything else in a 4X. But you don't get rid of any of it. You can still trade with each other. You can still make promises to each other. You can still expand. And the planets would just give you probably more money and maybe more like voting power. Which like, I think that you probably generate some vote power just from your people every round. But then like every planet you have consistently makes money for you and then gives you like a windfall of voting power that you can just like push extra during a round, and maybe each round is like you vote on 2 or 3 things and then go back in. The big crux of the game would be, how do you make the voting have like actual consequences? And I would think that a lot of the voting would be and I wouldn't want to like swipe this wholesale from what's the name of the game I was playing?
Twilight Imperium?
King's Dilemma. Wouldn't want to swipe this wholesale from King's Dilemma, but basically you would be voting on probably infrastructure for the galaxy. And so like, if we put a farming initiative out and like raise the agricultural level of the core planets, and you have an agenda card that gives you like a point per level of the agriculture's up, you want to see that go up. You don't want to see that go down, but maybe nobody knows that, And so maybe there'd be like 4 or 5 different things and so it really would be like pretty meaningful when they went up and down, because you don't know what other people are holding. But you could infer, like, if somebody always votes for ag to go up, they probably are going to get some points off of it. So that's my idea for the game. Hope I didn't take too long there, but feel free to pick me apart.
No, I agree that the political phase of games like that should be in many ways a highlight, and it's very dependent. So designing a game around that central ideal sounds really appealing, even though I hate politicking in games. I mean, I hate politicking in real life too. So, but at least I can
Yeah.
stand it in a 2 hour game. And be like, oh, perfect. Like, I like this idea of minimizing nearly everything else so that this is the standout portion of the game. And of course, thoughts that come to mind are things like it'd be cool if at some point you could try and attempt to pass like a demilitarization act, things like that, where someone has the largest military by far, and you're like, well, how do we curb that? Well, it's here's the demilitarization act card, and now everyone has to kind of reel in their militaries and stuff, and so but I don't know, like there could be acts that are directly tied to very dominant strategies across the game. I don't know how you would represent all of that besides having a random deck of cards you draw from, or maybe
Well,
you have face-up stuff, throughout the.
here's a thought. So what if, and I'm just spitballing here, what if one of the things you can buy with your money is agendas? And so when you vote during the game, you vote on a set amount of agendas,
Uh-huh.
and everybody, like, basically who bought agendas during the round can put them all together. You shuffle them up and put them on the bottom of the agenda deck. And so you know what you've put in there. And, like, maybe you can buy one agenda per round and you do 2 or 3 agendas per round. But agendas are kind of expensive, but they come in like 4 decks. There's like a infrastructure deck, a military deck, a this or that deck, and a this or that or the other deck, right?
Yeah.
And each of them has like 6 agendas. And you actually, when you buy an agenda, go and pick up the deck you want, pick the agenda you want, put the rest face down, and stick it in. So there's really only like 20 things you can vote on during the entire game, and they cycle back and back through based on what people are trying to push. And then as you play the game, you actually learn the nuance of like how these work.
There could be something really solid with that, man. It makes me think of Through the Ages, wherein you have that event deck, and one of the things that sold me on actually trying Through the Ages was I talked about how I hate random event cards, kind of like you said, like the Nope cards. A lot of games have these event cards that like, oh, at the start of every round, flip over an event card. Oh, Chris gets to lose all of his monks for this round. And like, I'm the only person invested in monks. Like, why did I?
Yeah.
But Through the Ages has it where players seed that event deck, and so a smart player will be able to stuff that deck with the right types of cards that will hurt other players but benefit themselves. But I like this idea of taking it a step further where you seed it and it's not going to just instantly hurt other people. It still has to vote. It has to pass referendum. You have to sway people to your side of the argument and say, no, the Demilitarization Act is really good right now, guys. Like,
and the thing is, they don't have the same back, and so like you wouldn't know who put what in either. And so, like, if something came out, you could be like, wow. Now, you could, if you had a good memory, you could be like, oh, well, Cam picked up the economic deck, and this is an economic policy, and there's only 2 of them in there. So this is like, there's a 50% shot that this is one that he put in, But I would think there'd maybe be like, yeah, I don't want to say like, let's not start big, let's start small. Maybe 5 of each policy card from 4 different types of policy. But like, if everybody, like, you have to pick up the deck of the agenda you're going to do before you pick one. So like, if you're playing for the first time, and you just know you want to have a strong military, like, it's easy to pick up the military thing and pick one. But like, as you get better at the game and you play with the same group of people and you see that there's only 3 cards left in the economic policy deck, you'll be like, I wonder if Bill already played that one that I was kind of wanting to see going in there, because he has a similar setup to what I'm trying to do. And like, it's the kind of thing where you could be as closer to the vest or open or closed as you want, and you can be like, okay guys, like, I'm picking demilitarization, just so Mike and Dave don't pick that, like, don't waste that, because like the 3 of us are pro demilitarization. like get something else in there, or I'll go and like take this one if you go take that one, and it would be the kind of thing where you could lie your way through it because it'd all be like secret.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, the meta of a game like that is based on the people you play with. And it's like if you always lie, then your friends know that you always lie.
Right.
You know, so. And that's the thing. That's an interesting thing. Thing that makes you go, games that we don't want to take up too much time with. But I do love that meta of, like, when you play a conflict game with somebody, like everybody has like kind of their reputation when you start, and like the earlier you backstab somebody in the game, the worse your reputation is, because nobody holds it against you if you stab somebody in the back at the end of a game because it's the end of the game.
Yeah, they're angry about it. Oh, Carl, dang it, I can't believe you did that.
People really do hold it against you if you do it in like the first round, because that could like seriously nerf the entire game for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's an interesting thing. Anyway, that's Space Diplomacy 4X, the board game, and the smaller the package, the better. The more races you can play, the better. The less overall content you have besides that, the better.
Yeah, I'm thinking like the other phases of the game could almost be like a race for the galaxy, like simultaneous card selection, flip it over.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I attack this player, 3 points. You invest in this thing, done. Like that'd be cool if it could be so quick, and then, boom, back to another referendum.
Yeah.
So.
And I think maybe there would be a thing too, where like maybe there would be an initiative order for like who takes actions when, and like if you got attacked, you would have like a little, white flag you could put up, which would be like, you can't get attacked again that round, but you can't attack anybody else that round.
Fair.
And so that people can't dogpile you, because I think they could have that Munchkin problem where like the guy who's in first place just gets wailed on at the end, and the person who is in second wins with very little resistance. So
whereas that should be a politicking thing. Gang up on the person. Don't fight them in this space diplomacy game.
Yeah.
One person fights him, but everyone else takes him down by lobbying and passing the right referendum.
But the thing about the games like this is, and I know this one from playing Twilight Imperium, is alliances get really fragile at the end of the game anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So like hopefully this game would naturally not be a dogpile thing at the end, because everyone would be close enough to each other, or it'd be like, well, if I help him there, like wail on that guy, then this other dude is actually going to win. So how do I make sure that I come out ahead? Maybe I protect that guy, but he does something that gives me a point, and he doesn't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be that's the game. But figuring out what those man, this would be a fun game. I think it's my favorite idea I've come up with so far for this thing. Anyway,
I really like it, despite the fact that it's also not my type of game. Like, the thought of playing King's Dilemma kind of disinterests me. I'm very interested in it, but I also know, like, I don't know, I'm hesitant, but the idea, like, this seems clever enough, and also you're my friend, so I'll put up with all of your terrible ideas, but I also but I'm also genuinely interested. I think this could be a really cool system to try and figure out. So, and you could approach Fantasy Flight Games and be like, hey, did you really need a really stuffy, boring space politics game to take place in the prequel trilogy?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we could do that. It would be called. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say one of the races could be the ET race, because that's apparently canon in Episode 1.
Oh, is it really?
Or in Episode
is there an ET in Episode 1?
Yeah, in the Big Galactic Senate, there's like a couple of ETs that are like... What were you going to say?
I was saying that instead of a prequel, I could call it Fantasy Flight Games and be like, yo, you guys want a politics-heavy Twilight Imperium spinoff?
I mean, that's fair, too. They kind of also own that IP.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. That's a cool pitch, though. Galactic Diplomacy.
Yes. Heroes of galactic diplomacy and red tape.
All right. So my game pitch today is a little bit smaller of a game. It's, in fact, quite a bit smaller of a game. I have for a while... here, I'm going to share my screen again.
Yeah, baby.
I have for a while wanted to make a multi-use card game of the weight of like Ticket to Ride or something. Just a a nice and simple, just how Ticket to Ride is kind of the it's almost a go-to comparison game for a lot of
Yeah,
things. Like people,
I think Ticket to Ride is great. I know people knock it as even a gateway game, but I think it's one of the best gateway games.
uh,
I am a Ticket to Ride apologist.
oh yeah, yeah, same here. I love it. It is a great game. It has so many strengths to it, and one of the strengths is the fact that it's kind of that gin rummy style draw card or play cards kind of a thing. Like
Yeah, yeah.
it's designed in a very simple way, and I see other games kind of compared to it. That's how I know it's a really good baseline. When people play Ethnos, they say like, oh, this is Ethnos is like the area control version of Ticket to Ride. Or if you've ever played New York 1901, which is Blue Orange Games' first like big box adult
I
game.
haven't. I've always thought it looked cool though.
It is really nifty. It's like a Tetris version. Like it's like a Tetris game of Ticket to Ride style play. And so Ticket to Ride kind of uses this baseline. And so I've wanted to see a Ticket to Ride a Ticket to Ride ish style game, but for multi-use cards. Um, Also, so that's part one. Part two of the genesis of this idea is I'm Korean. I don't really look like it. A lot of people have pointed that out plenty of times over my life, assumed that I've been adopted or something like that. I asked my mom when I was like 10. I was like, oh, am I adopted? I don't really look like Uncle John, you know. um, the joke there is every Korean American has an Uncle John somewhere in the family.
Oh, I didn't know that joke because I'm not a Korean American.
Yeah, the jokes are everyone has an Uncle John, and the dishwasher is a drying rack. So those are some of
So
the
did you get stuck with the three single syllable names? Like, because I have a lot of buddies who are Korean Americans that have like very American names, but they're still like bop bop bop.
I mean, like, there's like multiple Franks in our family because that was one of the most popular names in the '80s. And so when family emigrated here, they're like, "What's your name, Frank? My American name will be Frank." And
Well, what's your middle name?
Duke. Then there's a whole big story about that one.
Well, but
That was from my American uncle. That inspiration.
but that's all because see, you still do. I mean, in the tradition of Korean naming, you still have three single syllable names, right? Isn't that how they do it in Korea?
No,
Isn't
it wasn't.
isn't
Like
isn't that the thing?
my dad's name is Toksu Yi, and my mom's name is Taisuk. So I don't know. Um, but anyway, for sake of time here, um, I'm
Yeah,
not.
we can get out of
Yeah.
that.
The reason I bring it up is because I don't do a ton of stuff very traditionally. I This might be embarrassing for some people, but I wear my shoes inside the house. My parents adopted a lot of Americanisms, whereas my extended family is still very strict. You take off shoes when you
Oh,
come
sure,
into the
sure.
house. Like a lot of those traditions aren't as significant to me, but one of the things that we did was when we had our kids and my brother, when he's had his kids and everything, my parents did this for my brother and myself, is we celebrated what's called, I'm going to pronounce this terribly because I don't actually speak Korean, but Baek Il.
Okay.
Baek Il, written right here, is the Korean 100-day celebration. And so traditionally, babies who were unhealthy and like there's the high mortality rate back in the day of pretty much every country, but including Korea. And so if a child was unwell within the first 100 days, it was always disconcerting. So if a child made
Sure.
it to their 100th day, that was and healthily, that was a big cause for celebration. It was very likely determined from that point on that the child would survive into adulthood. And so Baek Il is the 100-day celebration. And so we've done that with our kids. Like I said, this is one of those traditions that my family has kept on. It means a lot to me, and I thought it would be cool to use this as a theme for some sort of multi-use card game. So there's a few. This is one of those games where the theme kind of comes first, and the mechanical approach to it will tie into some of the thematic stuff. But of course,
Sure.
also being a board game designer and being a board game player, you also think mechanically, very intuitively, right?
Right.
So I think the central thing is, with this particular celebration, you want to have 100 rice cakes eaten by 100 different people
Ooh.
is the most traditional way to do it. So you go knock on neighbors' doors. You go down the street and you say, here's some of the baksogi, right? And people say, "Oh, of course I have to eat that." Like congratulations. It's a big celebration kind of a thing. So my thought was the timer of the game would be there'd be a track right here in the middle that would go from 0 to 100, probably skip counting by fives, right? So anytime you move up the track, it's by counts of 5, 10, 15,
Sure.
20, etc., up to 100, and that would be like the end game trigger. But there's also other things that you would want to do that kind of fit into the tradition of the holiday. Um, Traditional elements include gifting people with coins and money and stuff, but also long pieces of string, which are symbolic of longevity and health for the child. When you go back to more of the traditional like deities and stuff that would be revered and worshipped and stuff, you would also place red bean cakes in the four corners of your home, the north, south, east, and west. So there'd be like, so my thought is that this could be like a multi-use card game that uses some set collection and uses some ability to bump up this main track in the middle to get up to 100. And you're also trying to do things like maybe you want to try and collect a set of 4 of those red bean cakes. If you get all 4, you can get a lot of good points for having the 4 corners of your house settled in. And strings could come in 4 or 5 different colors, and you're trying to collect strings, make long sets of strings. And so I kind of drew them here with different shapes to help differentiate. Like
Yeah.
something like that, I think would be really neat for something that's personally meaningful to me, but also could be a cool game that could be shared with other people. And they could say, "Oh, what is this idea? What is this 100-day party thing?" And it could be a fun, culturally sharing experience.
Nice. So how are the cards multi-use?
I'm not sure yet.
But it is I almost pitched you a multi-use card game today, a different concept I was thinking of earlier. But I was like, you know what? Chris loves multi-use card stuff, so I'm gonna let him be the guy to pitch the first multi-use card game. So that was what influenced me to think of something else for today.
Oh, interesting.
Um,
Well, how considerate of you.
yeah, well, I'm very humble.
So that's the thing is like spitballing it. Ticket to Ride's success comes from you have a lineup of 5 cards. You can draw one or you can play them. And maybe to just ride those coattails, maybe you could have something similar where you have multi-use cards. You have 2 or 3 uses per card, but you can draw them from a lineup and add them to your hand, and then maybe play a set of them. If I get 3 blue strings, I can play 3 blue strings at once, or I can play them as one at a time action, right? But you still want that set collection. You still want something going on. The other idea would be card drafting. So essentially, it would be Sushi Go, but with multi-use cards, maybe. But I don't know. Like that's the part that I'm kind of stuck on. I have
So here's
the macro idea, not the individual mechanisms.
here's a basic thought about how you could, because I think they'd have to have more than 2 uses to be really fun. But Karuba is a very simple multi-use tile game, right? You either place the tile or you ditch it.
Hmm.
I'm thinking you could probably, like, the more valuable the card, the more rice cakes are on it, and you ditch that card to feed a certain amount of people.
Yeah, to move up that big track. Yeah.
And so I think there's your first use right there, and then the second use would be part of your set collection thing. So you need to think of maybe a third or fourth use on each card to do other things, or maybe I don't know, maybe it's a piece of string, or it can make a portion of a red bean cake. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think very easily you could make the feeding part on the card.
And every card could be worth 5. Some are worth 10. Maybe one's worth 15. But that's also like going to be a really good card. Um, I like that idea, and I like the idea of ditching those cards. So pretty much every card could be like 5, 10 rice cakes or whatever. And here's another thought: is that you could have either, if it's a drafting game, you could have scoring rounds, right? Sushi Go
Mhm.
7 Wonders has 3 built-in scoring rounds until you draft out all the cards, and whoever's contributed the most to the rice cakes can earn a certain set of points. So you're incentivized to chase those rice cakes as well as
So everybody together is making it to 100.
Correct. Yes, that would be one key component. Is that the 100 is communal,
Oh, okay.
and I think that either at the end of the game or at certain breakout points, whoever has contributed the most to that, instead of making the best gifts, instead of making the longest pieces of string, or contributing the most coins, or whatever, like they're adding to a communal goal, which I think has some intrigue to it itself, um, because it's the timer of the game, because it is the because it's the time of the game, because it is a shared objective to work towards, can make for some really good choices.
I think you would want to have your cakes be lower in number than per card. Maybe what you could do. This is making a game more complicated than it needs to be, maybe. But if cards had a certain number of cakes on them, and you had milestones at like 25, 50, 75, 100, and for every time you play a cake, you have like a little cube in your color you put on the track, and then each milestone you hit, there's like a payout of points or something else for whoever had the most at each milestone. But then it's a whole new thing. So like, if I got 10 of the first 25 cakes in, and you got 7, and then somebody else got 8, then 10 would get 5 points, 8 would get 3 points, 7 might get a point, you know. But that could make it. And if those point values got higher as it went on, it would make the ending of the game a little more tense.
That's true. Yeah. So if you have the 4 milestones, and then the third milestone's worth more than the second, the final one's obviously worth the most. Like that would be really, because then your other things that you're collecting will have built up to be worth more. So it's just an increase over time.
Yeah. And I don't see. And the thing is, like, you could just wipe after the first milestone, so you wouldn't need to give a ton of cubes to each color. Or if everybody had like 20 cubes, that'd be fine. Probably 15 cubes or something like that. But it'd be the kind of thing where if you just like focused on doing the rice cakes and nobody else did, it wouldn't, like, that would be dumb. Because you would be giving up all your cards to get an amount of points that would be helpful if you were in the running to win, but would be thoroughly useless if that's all you did. You know what I'm saying?
But it also has to be balanced so that if everybody else is not contributing towards it and dragging out the length of the game, that would be a problem.
Well, maybe it'd be a thing where, like if you got more than half of them, you'd get double the score or something like that.
There you go. That's a cool incentive right there. Yeah. So majority and super majority.
Yeah.
So you certainly don't want somebody to get the super majority there. That alone could be a real. It inspires me the way that Terraforming Mars kind of inspires me. Where Terraforming Mars, you're constantly always pushing for that end game, because the more you push the end game objectives, the more terraforming rating you're getting, i.e., the more income you're getting. So yeah, you need something that encourages pushing towards the end. And that could be a fix right there.
There you go.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's Bak Il, the 100-day celebration, is my pitch.
We nailed it. And we're at 59:02 right now, so I think we'll end this podcast at like 1:02.
Nice.
And also we're looking at, like, since I've been recording, and I started recording like a minute before we even started, recording.
Yeah, man.
So that's tight, dude. We crushed today.
Add on our opening and our closing theme song. Do a little dance.
Yeah.
Do the robot.
Make a little love. Get down tonight.
Yeah, man.
I need to go record that closing theme song that I keep talking about. So do we have any final thoughts for today?
No, man. I really like your thought. Of any of the ideas that you have pitched so far, this is the one that I sincerely hope can actually get pushed into something. I also think it would be something that's not terribly difficult to make in Tabletop Simulator. And we could legit sit down and play this with a couple other people in a chat, in a Zoom call or a Discord call or whatever.
Well, I think this is going to be one that I'm thinking about over the course of the week. I think I'll probably have some more thoughts on this one when we talk next week. So
cool.
We're hitting our stride. We're coming up with good games.
I think so.
We are a board game factory.
I also think we're coming up with some somewhat realistic games, which is better than Rocky Road tabletop mini golf.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. I mean, we could make fire hose fairies. You know, fire hose fairies would also best be. I feel like if it really got made, it would need some type of. You remember all those games that were like sort of in the same family, like Fireball? I don't know if they were like any of them were made by the same people, but they all had like these little intrepid dudes like walking like this.
Yes.
You know, like Fireball Island, Dynamite, Tornado Rex. There was one with like a bridge where you press the head of the bridge and it like the bridge shakes back and forth. I feel like Firehose Fairies would need those guys. The coolest one I thought, as I was getting older, was the bridge one had. You would have to go steal like a gem at the top of the bridge, and your guy had a backpack, and you could stick a gem in it, and you had to get back across the bridge, and like the bridge would shake, and if you like hung on good, that's fine. But if the gem fell out of your backpack into the river, like somebody down in the river could go snag it and bring it back. I'm pretty sure it was one of the rules.
It's either a rule or that's something that you made up because it sounds way cooler than it not being a rule.
No, I'm pretty sure that was a rule of the game.
That's hilarious.
It could be just me remembering incorrectly, but yeah, man. Well, this was super fun. I think we're hitting our stride here. We're going to come up with some. I think next episode, when we're pitching games, let's decide how many more pitch episodes we want to do after that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, let's think about that. But I think we're starting to work up a pretty good stable of concepts.
I agree. I'm starting to think we have more potential hits than potential only sort of hits.
Yeah, I think when we're paring things down, it won't because they're not good ideas. I think it's because we want to start out by designing something that is lean. I think we on the same page there.
I agree.
And so yeah. I think we're doing a good job of coming up with leaner ideas every time. Although Firehose Fairies was one of my leaner ideas, and then I was like, huge adventure game, and then I was like, medium weight Euro with a lot of components, and now it's like game that can come in a small box.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think that this is the reason that Fruit Smoothie or whatever is probably one of my most likely ideas to actually get made. This Black Ill 100-Day Celebration is also it has a few more kinks to it. There's more going on mechanically. But I think component-wise and stuff, it wouldn't be too hard. I still am really excited about that one I talked about last week, with the three different types of fighters and stuff.
That game would be very fun, very sick.
It could be so good, and we wouldn't even have to make it a campaign. It could just be, can this function as like a fighting game, and it'd be so fun. But yeah, I think lean, mean, board game machine is what we're aiming for here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Robotnik's Lean Bean board game machine.
All right. Well, I appreciate everyone watching. Once again, my name is Chris. You can catch me on the Meeple Overboard podcast and on a little show called CNC Board Game Factory.
And this is your boy Cam, and you can catch me on the Board Boys podcast and the Meeple Overboard Boys podcast and CNC Board Game Factory.
And you can catch them outside. How about that? That is probably something.
How about that?
Yeah. That's probably something Gen Z is going to make fun of us for in just a few years.
You're the one who said it, not me, man.
Whatever.
I'm clean.
You're the one that's outside. Lean and green.
That's true. Lean and green. Cool, man. Well, good podcast. So are we done recording now?